All right, playing with my stuff. I don't know. I'll make it more seamless. Oh, I don't have my intro. That's okay, guys. I'll be the intro then. Then I'll be fine. Hope everybody is doing well here at this lovely day today. We're going to go over some really important stuff, which is the difference between love bombing and genuine desire. So I had a video request from one of my clients and subscribers. You guys can always send a video request to me. A paid video request will get me to really cover it in some detail, if it provide time permitted, of course, and other things going on. Find and look for his original message to me. I get so many messages. Here we go. So he had sent over. So he had said, all right, so my divorce was made final last week. So I would now appreciate your insight on how to differentiate between genuine burning desire and love bombing from a narcissist when dating. He said, because there's likely many similarities and nuances between the two, but it'll take some knowledge and insight on how to spot those differences. Don't want to repeat the same mistakes as before. So yes, this is a really good topic. I get this a lot, and I have a breakup recovery program and a trauma recovery program. And in both of those programs, it's on the website over at apexmindset.net. Both of those programs, this will come up where someone they got out of a narcissistic abuse relationship or a borderline personality disorder abuse relationship. And they've gotten out of it. They're not sure, what to do. There's a lot of confusing emotions, a lot of attachments to this other person. And, I end up working with people on session. But a big thing that people, whether they talk to me or whether they recover on their own or whatever, but a big concern, of course, that people have is, how do I avoid this in the future? And how do I differentiate between a good chick, you know what I mean, and someone who's showing genuine desire, right? And so, yeah, there is no genuine desire with a narcissist, and that's true. Okay, they can't bond like a normal person, and we'll get into those points here in a second. Right. So let's first talk about the abuse cycle. All right. So the narcissistic abuse cycle is, and I'm going to use the term narcissistic abuse cycle, but this applies to any of the big four personality disorders, which is you have your narcissism, your borderline personality disorder, your histrionics, and your antisocial personality disorder. Each one of them show up a little bit different, but we'll kind of focus or dial in on the narcissist or borderlines here, and kind of what happens, because the cycle is very similar. And the reason why they fit in a similar category on the DSM is because there seems to involve similar patterns for how they handle their relationships and how they interact with the world. Basically, in a nutshell, we're all social animals, and we're all designed to connect with each other socially. And it's some people have that compromised, right? That social connection, the ability to connect to others is compromised for in some way, shape, or form. And there's different ways that things can be compromised. Like, for example, someone who has something neurological going on that affects their communication. Like, these are not personality disordered people, but people with autism, people with Asperger's, people on the spectrum, pervasive development disorder, things like that. So these are individuals who neurologically they're compromised when it comes to communication, and they have some struggles with that. And those are on spectrums. But the personality disorder is an affected or a compromised, we'll say a compromised ability to bond with another person in a normal, healthy way. All right. So the way us human beings are designed to bond with each other and have a good, neurochemical reaction to each other and to people, they're unable to do that. So they don't have the ability to connect with people in the same way that you or I, or we'll say unaffected people, can connect. And so because of that, you end up with all of these traits, and you end up with a person who just has an inability to have that genuine human concern for another, or I shouldn't say an ability, but we'll say a compromised ability. So one thing to look at and keep in mind here is that this is a spectrum, okay, that's going on. So there's some people that are low end of the spectrum, and they can they're in the low end of the spectrum. Sorry, I'm being distracted by my computer here. The low end of the spectrum, people are pretty well functioning, but they still fit the characteristics, and they're just compromised. Higher end of the spectrum are people who are completely manipulative and very dangerous. All right. So that's when we'll say BPD, because normally women are borderline and end up turning out to be borderline personality disorder. There are some women that fit narcissism. There's some women that fit antisocial, but BPD tends to affect women the most, whereas males, tend to be affected the most by narcissism or antisocial personality disorder. And the reasons for that have to do with how we're genetically wired and our brains are wired. And so that just puts a woman in a position to be affected with more of the BPD traits, just, from the just fact of her femininity and those things. And so yeah, you got to remember this is a spectrum. So, you might have somebody who can get help and be, able to function and be okay to a point, right? And then you have some people that absolutely can't. All right. So their capabilities are going to vary, and that's something to keep in mind. So let's kind of continue through here. Just trying to line my notes up so I can talk about this with clarity. So the abuse cycle. What'll happen is, and this one, we're not gonna get too detailed because I could literally talk about this for several hours, and I want to make sure I get you guys the information here that we're looking for, which is how do I tell the difference early on in a relationship, right? Well, first though, so to give you a little bit of a background, if you don't have it, let's look at what the abuse cycle is. So the abuse cycle is, you have an idealization phase. So this is where this person will idealize you and see you as the best human being on earth. And then that's where they're going to love bomb you. So the beginning of the relationship is where that love bombing is going to happen. And the love bombing can mirror that genuine desire. And that's what can be confusing about it for some guys, and what we're going to try to differentiate today. Now, after that idealization period, or love bombing phase, they call it, things start to move into a devaluation phase, where they start to devalue you and bring you down, and then eventually moving to discarding you. So that's the three phases. Now, once they discard you, or they've devalued you a lot, they might discard you, and that might only be temporary. They'll do something called hoovering, which is suck you back in, and then start back with sprinkle a little bit more love bombing in and some idealization, and then go back through the cycle and repeat the cycle. So understanding why this happens, this is really important. The reason why this happens is because part of their personality disorder is they don't have a sense of self. That's very confused. Like, their sense of self is not normal. And often with BPD, there's a deep, dark, like, despair and just feeling of being just an empty person, like being empty inside. And they'll report, feelings of that emptiness, right? Or that just, not feeling or being able to understand like who they are. And so who they are is predicated on how others supply their ego, and how others, and their environment around them. So their sense of worth is based on how others will do what's called supply, which is basically change themselves and do things for them and alter their way of being essentially for them. You know what I mean? So they can't bond in a normal way, in a normal human way. So what they'll do is they'll meet with somebody and they'll bomb them and they'll have all of these love feelings and all this stuff. When they meet a new person, that person is not necessarily bought in. And so what happens is they're bombing them with love and sex, all these great feelings. And so that person starts to change themselves and and change who they are, essentially, to become more bonded to them. And so they start making these changes, and basically she's winning, essentially, because this other person is trying to, she's trying to get this person, essentially, and get their, we'll say their love, but get their attachment. And so as this person becomes more and more attached and more into this relationship with this person, that's how this person is sort of changing who they are, essentially, and changing their behaviors and thoughts and emotions for this person. And those changes, in doing it to appease or to win this person, or to love this person or be with this person, that's what supplies that ego. That's what gives them the sense of worth. And so from there, okay, they get to a point in the love bombing phase where they can't go any further. So in other words, once they've won you over, they can't continue. There's nowhere else to go. There's only so much you can give into that. And when they feel or think that they've gotten to that point, because of their emptiness inside and because of their inability to have stable or healthy relationships, they start then looking for reasons why this thing would blow up or could explode in their face, or why they could be abandoned, or how you could end up turning out to be a bad person. And then they end up then devaluing you and bringing you down. By saying devaluing you is like they start creating problems where problems never existed before, and they start, criticizing and seeing you with contempt and bringing you down in value in their own eyes. And bringing yourself down, you start to see yourself as lower value, because what the victim does is your identity becomes wrapped into the relationship and into this other person. And so they end up bringing you down because your sense of self is wrapped up into what this other person thinks about you. And so then they start saying, well, basically their actions, words, behaviors starts demonstrating, you know what? I don't really think that you're all as great as I thought I was, or you're this terrible person, or you're this bad person. And so you start, you were getting all of this love and sex and validation from this person. She removes that stuff and then says basically sends you the message, well, that's your fault. You did these things. You did something that I didn't like. And so now you're not worth this validation and love that I used to give you. And that puts the victim in a position of pining and trying to get that back. And that's what devaluing is. And so now, in order to appease that ego again, because they've only gone so far up the ladder, the only way down to go is down the ladder. And so they start systematically devaluing you. And then, starts to become more rapid. Their emotions will shift. They'll throw some more love bombing in, right? And then, but that'll be fleeting. That'll be, in moments, and then boom, back to devaluing. So it just continues this process, and it gets the victims to a position where they're literally behaving and doing things that they would have never done before. They're losing their identity in this relationship. And then when they get that person to the lowest point that they can perceive, and they feel like that this person can't get any lower, they're not going to be willing to continue to change for her as much as as much or as impacting as they can. So I guess we'll cut ties now and we'll discard this relationship. And so that's when they leave. And the way that narcissists do it's different than BPDs and so forth. And so that's the cycle. And you want to be familiar with that. But the best thing to do to not, because it's very damaging. The victims of this find themselves basically in a traumatic situation with these partners. It messes with who they are, and people make, permanent decisions for temporary problems. We'll say that, self-harm and things like that, and really get into dark places when they're victims of these relationships. So that is your overview of what happens. Now, the best thing to do, however, is, to not get in these things in the first place. Now, a note, though, a word of note is because you have to understand during this love bombing phase, these people with personality disorders, BPD people, don't have a sense of self. So they're adopting a personality that suits the situation and who you are. So in other words, they're becoming your perfect partner. That's essentially what they're doing. All right. So they're becoming the best person that you could ever imagine. They're paying close attention to what would drive you and your attraction triggers, and they're adopting those things, adopting those traits and personality traits and behaviors that would get you essentially to fall in love with them. Right. And that's what they're doing in that love bombing phase, because they're wanting to move you into this attachment to them. And that's what they need. They need your attachment. And so they're trying to push, to pull you in, and they're doing it by being this idealized person that you have for a perfect partner. And so that's what they do. But what you have to realize is when you break up with these people and you miss them and you have all this heartache and all these bad feelings, that you don't actually miss them. Who you miss is the person that they pretended to be. Okay. So like when guys are in these breakups and they're like, and by the way, I've been there myself, so I know from personal experience, when they say things like, man, I really just want her to get some help, right? What you really mean when you say that is that you want her to return to the person that she pretended to be so that you can live happily ever after with her. But you see, the problem is that person never existed. Okay. So even if she goes and gets help, she'll never return to the person that she was when she was love bombing you. She's going to be a different human being, whoever that is, right? The person that you fell in love with, if you're getting out of these relationships, never existed. And so it's really important when you're working through a breakup on this, that you go through the steps to breaking off that neurochemical attachment to this other person. And that attachment that you get caught in with this abuse cycle is like a drug. Okay. It's very much like a drug. People behave like drug addicts with these partners. All right. And that continues to, promote this abuse cycle when they hoover you back in and then repeat the cycle. And by the way, for anyone listening, in my female listeners as well, this applies. This is actually pretty universal. So there's women who get caught into relationships with guys like this. There's different dynamics and details, but the cycle and what the overview of what happens tends to be the same, right? And so that's what you have to remember if you're getting out of one of these things. That old person that you miss and that you fell in love with never existed in the first place. There is no amount of help that a BPD person can get that's going to return her back to the person she was during the love bombing. That's over with and will never happen again, because that person was love bombing you because she had a personality disorder and was unhealthy, right? And so even if she was able to get help and get rid of, I won't say get rid of the disorder, but get control of the disorder and start having an ability to have healthy connections with others, she would never go back into the idealization that she had for you. Because even if we could wave a magic wand and all of a sudden she's 100% healthy, well, then she's not going to idealize you. By definition, she won't idealize you the way that she did, because that idealization came from an unhealthy place that she was in. So I really want you guys to understand that, because a lot of you guys get caught in this and you can't, your addiction tells you to win this person over, or you want to get her back. Guys have to, they go through a breakup cycle with me and coaching sessions and stuff like that. In one of my programs, they go through this cycle with me to break the attachment. But a lot of times their mindset is like, well, I'll break the attachment because that'll push her into getting help, and then we can be together later. Like that's sometimes that's their only motivation. They're so attached to this other person, and it's such a drug addiction, and they know it's bad for them, that the only way that they can rationalize breaking the addiction is in hopes to be able to do more of the drug later. And the problem is you'll never get it. You're chasing a high that will never, ever happen again with that person. What you have available to you, though, is a better high that's healthier in a healthy relationship. And that's another thing that people get caught into, is they think the biggest schema or unconscious belief that gets developed after these things is that they believe that they'll never have as good of a relationship or as tense of a relationship or have these as good of sex or as good as of the emotions in a relationship in the future. In other words, I'll never have as good as sex as I did with a crazy person, right? And that's what, people start to think. They believe that becomes a schema, is that, well, crazy BPD sex is the best sex. And I'm never going to have good, that kind of sex with a healthy person. And I'll tell you that that's actually not true. It may have been true for you, some of you guys listening up to this point. And the reason that's true for you is because you haven't been able to seduce a woman to a point, a healthy woman, to a point where she is insane and crazy about you and giving you that level of, we'll say, BPD desire, or even more so inside the bedroom and in your times alone together and all that stuff. But then on the good thing about those relationships, though, is there's no downside, right? So you can have all the intensity, but without the downside risk, because that person's healthy. But what that requires, though, is for you to hold frame and have seduction skills. And you have to take in, and this is not just pickup skills. This is getting her emotionally to the next level. All right. So your future, if you want it, after these relationships break up, is to have better than that. And I don't just mean better in terms of more stable, because that's what people think. They think, well, it'll be more stable, but it won't be as fun or it won't be as exciting. No, you can have even way, way, way more excitement, but you have to learn the seduction skills to get it there. With that, I'm going to do a quick word of from our sponsors, which is mostly me. Bear with me. This is new for me to do this. And so we're going to do this little sponsor thing, and then I'll get back to the rest of the video. Thank you. Your success with women literally boils down to one thing. When you have this one thing, all of your troubles disappear and you start having amazing experiences that most men can only dream of. And that's the good news. But the bad news is, if you don't have it, nothing else will work. All of the money, good looks, advice on the internet, and all the best pickup and game skills out there will fail without you mastering this one thing. And that one thing is frame. Develop the skills in establishing and keeping frame, and everything else follows. That is the big secret. And the good news is, I can teach you all you need to know about it. The answers to ending your pain and suffering and to start living an amazing life with women is just one click away. After this video, click on the link in the description to schedule a free consult to see if you are a good fit. And then you and I can work together on finally getting you to start living the life with women that most men can only dream of. Are you tired of your face being weak and beta and everyone always wanting to punch it? Well, there's not much I can do about that, but maybe Chad's face scrub can help. It has been crafted for men with all natural ingredients and without the nasty testosterone disrupting chemicals that will eventually turn you into a little man girl. So, whether you need to take a punch or steal someone's girlfriend, or just stay fresh as you go through the rigors of daily life as a man, Chad's is your brand. Order from my link in the video description to help support the channel. All right, I don't know how that turned out. So a few people dropped off, said, F this, I'm getting out of here. I think the ad's hilarious though. The second ad's funny. First one's just real. But real talk though. I mean, it's not just like a grift of my crap. I mean, if you want better relationships, you gotta like especially from recovering from these kinds of things, you have to learn some skills to be able to take a normal girl and not make her crazy in a bad way, but to make her have such a crazy good time with you that she becomes so sexually and emotionally bought in, right? That she ends up having this great time. Yeah, the chat, you like that chat? And if you don't want a beta face that gets punched every day, then get Chad's face scrub. But anyway, yeah, I'm doing these things that help support the channel. I appreciate you guys sticking around. You know, it's that's what we're doing. Right. And so I'm playing with some of the technology, and some of you guys who know me better know I'm very challenged technologically speaking, but we'll get back on task here. All right. And I see you in the chat. You guys are great. Thanks again for supporting and watching my cool ads during the live streams here. If you have questions, throw a super chat in. I got a lot of points to make, so I won't be able to get to everybody's questions probably, because I know there's a lot of questions about this topic. A lot of guys have been through these types of relationships, and you know, if you haven't, you don't want to be in one. And so we want to definitely have these conversations. But that said, yep, there's a lot of points to make. And so in the interest of time, if you throw a super chat in there, that'll help me. I'll make sure that your question gets answered. I will try to answer you either way, but you know, can't promise anything with all the points I got to make. So back into it. So we've made all of those points. You guys understand what happens. So then how do we differentiate during the love bombing phase, the difference between a girl who's just like crazy desire for you, but who's normal and healthy, and a girl who's, has a personality disorder, or even if it's not a personality disorder, an attachment problem, right? Or some sort of problem that is causing her to love bomb. And then you're going to get invested, and then she creates a bunch of problems for you later. So, you know, you got to remember too, if you've been through this, you're also susceptible to repeating the pattern. So first things first, I like the fact that my client had asked this question and did a video sponsor for it, because that tells me he's thinking the right way, right? So he's thinking about, how do I make sure I don't get into these things in the future? He's recognizing that just like an addict could be susceptible to becoming addicted to the old substance that was his drug of choice, or a different type of drug, that addict has to understand what patterns of behavior do I need to have so I don't fall into the same thing. Because when you've experienced this love bombing, especially, you know, if you haven't gotten to the level or point where you've been able to seduce a woman to a very high level, that love bombing feels damn good. You know, you feel like you are the man. You feel like this chick will make you feel delusionally alpha. You feel like you are the big swinging dick on the planet, right? Like your D has magical powers. That's what they make you feel like, and that you're just so awesome and amazing. I've had so many guys go through these things, and then I've had guys in different forums and communities get angry with me because they thought, you know, at offering some advice, like, hey man, you got to watch out for a couple of these red flags and some things. Age was one. I remember a specific guy, and he's an all right guy. If you're listening, bro, like, this isn't a no hate or shade, but we really got into it, and he was pretty personally attacking on me and divisive and defending his relationship. And he was in a relationship with a girl who was under 25. And my opinions on that is that LTRs under 25, most girls are not, in this day and age, are not capable of that. And I'm not saying don't be in an LTR with a girl who's under 25, but you just have to recognize that there's inherent risks there. And that's all. You have a girlfriend who's 21 years old and you're in a long-term relationship, and you're planning a forever relationship. And that's when I say risk, I mean risk of that ending within a few years versus lasting till you're 80, 90, 100 years old. So the risk, again, is if you're looking for that long-term ride or die chick that 20-year-old, that 21-year-old, she is still emotionally developing and developing a personality. And so her adult personality at 28 is going to be different than it was at 21. And therefore she might grow into being somebody who is not compatible for you later. And there's ways of getting around that. That's frame and seduction. Back to the community I run, right? For guys who are in that situation, there's ways to manage it, but there's an inherent risk there, you know? And at any rate, he was very mad at me and was really personally attacking because he was in a BPD relationship and this woman made him feel like he had all the answers to every problem when it came to women. And of course, I don't have all the answers. None of us do, right? I have a lot, but you know, nobody has all of the answers, all up for everything. We're always improving and getting better. And so his ego, your ego will get out of control during this love bombing phase. When things are going well, this chick makes you feel like you're just awesome, you know? And the thing is, it's because you feel so damn good, you're susceptible to getting into that again. Until you have done it, until you learn how to seduce a woman to feel even better than that relationship during love bombing felt, you're always going to be susceptible to falling into that same thing with a different chick. So keep that in mind, right? So he's asking the right questions. And if you've been through this type of situation, you know, wanting to know this information is good. Okay. Now, the next thing here, really important point, is that although knowing the red flags are important, what's more important is that you learn about yourself here. Okay. Because there's something inherently within you that cause you to be vulnerable or susceptible to getting into an NPD or BPD relationship to begin with. So the key to not getting in with it in it again is to learn about what makes you susceptible. You know what I mean? And so if you can learn and figure out what is it about me that would allow me to be in this situation where I end up going crazy and literally losing myself until I finally break out of it, or I'm broken up with or cheated on or discarded. What is it about me that would cause me to get into that to begin with? All right. So that is the question you need to ask, because if you can answer that question, right, then what's going to happen is you won't get into these things, regardless of any red flags that you missed. So guys wanting to know the red flags, it's still important. We're going to go over that, the difference between genuine desire and, you know, the love bombing. We're going to go over it so you can recognize it. All right. But I want you to focus more on yourself though. And what is it about you that would cause you to get into it? Because usually what I find is it's a combination of a number of things. Some insecurities. Okay. I hate that word, but you know, in this, it's appropriate here. All right. I'm not using that word just to shame and just make people feel, you know, weak or something, but but in this case, people who are susceptible, they might have some self-esteem issues and some insecurity issues and not feeling worthy or good enough. That could be one thing. Not always though, because if she's making herself into your perfect partner, and it's easy to fall for that. You know what I mean? So very healthy people can fall for that as well. So the insecurity thing though is not universal, but it is one of those things. Learning from an early age that your value is in taking care of others at the expense of your own needs and wants, and learning to deny your own feelings and thoughts about things. That's a most common trait right there. Guys who learn, and we could say the blue pilled guy, right, who learns to self-sacrifice for the relationship, which is pretty normal. That's what's taught to most men. Well, that paradigm makes you vulnerable to these types of relationships. You really wouldn't get into these types of relationship if you were focused on taking care of yourself first and then taking care of others. But if your model is to sacrifice yourself and to feel good about that self-sacrifice in order to, do things for other people. Well, that sounds good to a lot of people, but really it's not. And so what ends up happening is you are open to somebody abusing that quality that you have, or that aspect of yourself. Um, Another quality or trait is that if you're made to believe you're a bad person easily, if you're easily made to believe that I'm a bad person for not being considerate of another. So it's feeling guilty. Your ultimate automatic default is, oh, I messed up, or I'm a bad person because of someone else's wants, needs, or feelings. If feeling bad for not sacrificing yourself, that's not a healthy trait. Okay. And I'm not saying to be selfish and to be a dick, but you can put other people's priorities and make those a priority for yourself, but you're not sacrificing yourself to do so. There is a difference between taking care of other people while taking care of yourself, because when you do that, your ability to take care of people goes up, right? Your ability to help people out is, you can help people out in a much greater and much more impacting way when you're taking care of yourself. But a lot of people get into that sort of toxic dynamic where they don't take care of themselves and they feel better about themselves by sacrificing themselves. If that's you, that is putting you right in line. So that is the number one thing, because there's a lot of people who aren't really insecure, don't necessarily have, by definition, low self-esteem, but they've just learned this model that when I'm in a relationship, happy wife, happy life. I got to sacrifice myself for this other person. Oh, I have these goals and dreams, but I got to sacrifice these dreams because she wants kids and she wants to get married next year. And gosh, I really love her. And so whatever, right? These things can happen in normal relationships where guys self-sacrifice in a manner that's unhealthy. And that causes them to lose frame, lose the attraction of their woman, and things go very badly when they do that. So back to mental point of origin, you want to stay on it and you want to stay on your purpose. And this, by doing that, you're going to remove the possibilities of getting into it with a BPD or NPD chick, at least getting into it too far, right? She may dupe you for a little bit during the love bombing, but once things start to take a turn for the worst and the requirement becomes that you sacrifice your purpose in life to handle and deal with this relationship, you're going to end up not going down that road anymore, right? If you have a sense of healthy self-esteem and you're worth something, and that your worth is not predicated on her validation, or on your worth isn't predicated on you sacrificing your goals and dreams because she's having a problem today, right? You're not going to end up in it. So red flags that you can have the most convincing, manipulative con artist in the world that you get in with, who can totally dupe anybody and everybody, including me. And I'm pretty damn good at this stuff. You can have that. But the thing is, you won't get into it if you stay on your mental point of origin. All right. And you know what, your superpower in this, the ultimate superpower, and this is where, a big part of frame, a big part of what I'm helping train guys to do, both in the Alpha Mindset course, which is you can just purchase, keep it forever, or in the mastermind group where you're working with me, is to have that outcome independence, meaning that confidence in yourself, that you'll make everything good, even if things don't turn out well. All right. That's by definition there. But and also not needing a woman for validation. You can be with a chick in a healthy relationship and have all the love feelings and all the good stuff without looking to her to validate who you are as a person. You can separate those things, but it does take a different way of thinking, and it does because you think you have it, but then you don't, right? And so you want to be able to do that, because that's a healthy thing where that you're worthwhile, even if she's mad at you today and doesn't think so. All right. So that's your superpower for not getting into these types of relationships, is to be able to, is to be able to have that outcome independence and not need validation from any woman at all. You know what I mean? The validation you have comes from the data not from somebody else's emotions. Because you got to remember, when someone's with you, even in a healthy relationship, when that girl that is really into you, she's in an emotional exchange, so her opinions are not going to be logical. When she's upset or mad at you, she's going to feel a lot of bad feelings towards you, and that doesn't mean you're a bad human being or a worthless human being, right? And so you have to be able to separate those two things. When you learn how to do that and can hold frame, you'll never get into a toxic relationship dynamic like this ever again. You'll never do it. Red flags or no red flags. So I'm going to interact with you guys a little bit in the chat, and then we'll get to the actual flags. Okay. And I see you, Pete. All right. So Peter, thank you for the super chat. I'm going to go dig out some questions now. Dun, dun, dun. Okay. So discuss. So this one is, can you discuss general parameters for seducing and betting a virgin? Okay, well, I'm going to write that down and keep it to the end, only because I want to keep questions right now on topic, and then I'll go through that. So betting a virgin. All right. Yeah, it's not an easy answer. So I don't mean to make you wait, but I got it because a lot of guys are chomping at the bit to get the information that the video describes here. Great chemistry. I can feel desire. So you feel desire, but she's very slow to trust someone to be intimate with them. 6 dates, no kiss yet. Okay. All right. And she's 22. Well, first question I have for you is, what's her reason for being a virgin in the first place? Now, I'm not saying that I'm not criticizing her decision. I think it's a good decision in a lot of ways for her long-term prognosis. It's not a judgment, but you got to look at the reasons why. What's her rationale? What's her reasons? Is it religious and philosophical, or is it just because she hasn't felt comfortable or she hasn't found the right person? Those are two different reasons. So I'll ask you that. And all right, cool. So that's that question. And so you've written a lot of stuff, and I can't make this all about, I can answer a question, but I can't make it all about get too far into your situation here, or I'm gonna lose the topic. So yeah, Peter, let me know in the chat, and I'll answer it at the end. What's the reason at 22 that she's, that she is a virgin, and what's her reasoning for not kissing, and like what's her frame of mind? I need a little bit more on her background. Okay. And so smash the like, peeps. Okay. So her reasoning for being a virgin is because she knows she gets attached too easily. All right. So that's already now a red flag now, right? That is a red flag. And so if there's no reason, like there's no religious or philosophical reason, then now we're running into a possible issue here, and we'll get it towards at the end. Okay. So not liking fast dating culture is good. That's not a bad thing. All right. But yeah, again, we have to ask ourselves some serious questions about that. But I don't mean to make you wait, but I know that guys are really wanting to stay on topic, and then I'll get to the rest of that, because that is an interesting question we'll explore here. Okay, so let's get into, though, now we understand the framework. We understand that the biggest prevention method is your framework, not her red flags and recognizing her things. Okay, the biggest thing is you, because if you have a good, healthy mindset and don't require validation from women, can hold frame, right? And you don't believe you need to sacrifice your purpose for another person's thing. You don't hold up this schema or a conscious belief, or even conscious one, that being sacrificing like that is a good thing. Your value and sense of value isn't predicated on taking care of someone else's needs at your own expense. If those things aren't there, you're probably never going to go down too far down the rabbit hole again with somebody like this. So that's your best prevention method. But with that, let's go over some of these flags. Okay. Now these flags stand alone. They're red flags. Okay. But they're not necessarily an indicator of a personality disorder. These traits and flags are not diagnosis. You're not able to diagnose somebody, but that's not what you're trying to do. You're just trying to determine, is this person healthy or unhealthy? All right. You can't be a psychologist and figure out all of that stuff, nor does it matter. And it shouldn't matter when you're dating. If you're really, really wondering about that and trying to go down that rabbit hole, and you're not her psychologist, which you shouldn't be if you're dating her, well, then they already have an unhealthy attachment right off the bat. And that's another thing. If you have a propensity to having unhealthy attachments early to women, which goes again back to your validation being predicated on a woman, then that is going to make you susceptible. And so you're going to want to explore either with, a local therapist or somebody, or in session with me or through one of my programs, why that stuff is, so you don't repeat these mistakes. But first thing to look at is that she's moves too quickly. Okay. So this is what you'll notice is that a healthy woman, a big green flag is that she actually holds back her feelings a little bit. And so that's what's not understood. Guys, you think, especially you guys who really have not experienced genuine desire other than through toxic relationships, you think that her just falling deeply for you immediately is a healthy answer. And I'm going to tell you that it isn't. All right. And it's not a testament to your seduction abilities. It's more of a testament to her mental problems. Okay. So when a girl falls for you and is crazy about you, like first, second date kind of stuff, that's more of a statement about her mental problems than it is your seduction ability. So if you're finding that, and and there's always one or two you dorks that are going to brag in the comments later or somewhere in the chat, like, oh, I always get the girl X. I'm so hot and seductive. My magic D just, gets the girls to fall in love with me. Oh, okay. Guess what? You are picking women who have mental problems. All right. Now, you'll notice that her feelings and even urgency for sex or getting physical may happen right away, may happen on the first date, may happen on the first hour. All right. So the physical part may be there because she does see you as the Chad and the seduction stuff is there. All right. That being said, though, emotionally, because her sexual decision to be with you is going to have a lot to do with the circumstance and her mind state in that circumstance, as well as her desire for you. And if you could check out the video I did where I talked about an action threshold. All right. So for example, a girl who's on vacation looking to have a one-night stand is going to sleep with you a lot quicker, right, than a girl who's maybe on a first date in her hometown, who's concerned about what other people might think. So it's desire, but it's also an action threshold, which is the point that, the point or threshold or decision point for her to have sex and how much desire is required to get her there. A first date in her hometown on a Tuesday when she has to work the next day, it's going to require that girl a lot more desire. And maybe she's even on her period or something, and she hasn't shaved her legs, right? Like all these things are there. She's not planning on sleeping with you. It would take a lot to get her to the desire point where she would choose that on that date, in that description. Whereas the girl who has shaved her legs, is ready and wants the full vacation experience, to use that example, she's not going to get social repercussions. And then she meets you and you're a hot dude, whatever. Okay. She sleeps with you quicker. Oh, all right. Those things are great. But what she's not doing is telling you she wants to bury your children, okay, after sleeping with you, and that she loves you. All right. That would be a lot, wouldn't it? And so even if she does sleep with you quickly because she sees you as that guy, all right, or maybe she takes 2 or 3 dates, none of those things matter. It's not just how quickly she sleeps with you. I know how, we'll say, black and white thinking some of you guys are that listen to a lot of this stuff. So I'm going to try to help you and say it's not just this one data point of how quickly does she sleep with you. Okay. It's a demonstration of her feelings and emotions, and those things are different. A healthy girl is going to hold that stuff back for like 6 to 8 weeks at least, and most likely longer. 6 to 8 weeks, her saying, oh my God, I think I'm falling in love with you. Okay, that's normal. But if that's normal, only if you're really good at seduction and things are going well. Okay. If all things are going right 6 to 8 weeks, she may be like, I'm really falling for you and be showing those emotions. But she's not doing that in week 1 or 2. And for most of you guys who are dating, spinning plates, right? Dating multiple women, or, there's a lot of, or maybe she's doing the same, right? And you're not sure. It won't be 6 to 8 weeks. It may be like 3 or 4 months before she really starts opening up emotionally, right? You start screwing up a bit and showing unattractive signals. All right, so it's going to be longer. All right, and so that's something to keep in mind. A healthy woman is going to hold back because she's going to have a protective framework for herself. She doesn't want to get so invested emotionally into somebody that she doesn't really know yet. She has an ability to delay, gratification. She may sexually desire you and just want to bang you every minute of the day because she had a really good time with you on that first or second date. But she's not going to just be like, oh my God, I love you. We have this future together and do all of these idealized things. All right. Someone who does that is someone who's not mentally healthy, someone who can't control their emotions well. And so even if she doesn't turn out to be someone with a personality disorder, she's going to be emotionally erratic and problematic in a relationship. She may cause a lot of drama, and she may be that person who is susceptible to cheating on you as well, or discarding you quickly because she's making drastic and emotional decisions with not demonstrating an ability to protect herself or delay gratification. You see what I'm saying? And so that's something you need to be aware of just in general. A girl who is emotionally crazy about you before that 6-week mark, that's something to look at. And again, that's not a hard number, so it's not a black and white thing, right? And it's going to depend how often you see each other. It'll depend on a lot of things. But certainly, though, if she is getting there within a couple of weeks or after, do not think that you have the most powerful penis in the world, and that's why she's fallen for you. My gosh, I'm so alpha. Oh, I'm alpha. And that's why she said she loved me after we had sex on the 3rd date. Okay, no, BS. All right. She has something wrong with her. Okay. And that's why. So keep that in mind. You'll notice her holding back. You'll notice her wanting to text you more, wanting to see you more, but then she's going to hold back and try to protect herself a little bit. She's going to try to artificially pull away a little bit, even though her feelings are becoming more and more invested. All right. That's a sign of a healthy person who is trying to slow the pace down a bit so she can get to know you and protect herself. All right. And that's important. So with that, she'll move too fast and have a false sense of urgency. So she'll give you a false sense of urgency. So this is emotional urgency. God, I've never felt this way before. Oh, I love you so much. Well, you complete me. You've taken me to places I've never been before. And it's only our 2nd time seeing each other. Oh, I've only text messaged you and we haven't even been on a date yet, but I've never felt this way about a man on Tinder before. These are ridiculous. This is somebody who's not emotionally sane, right? And so that should be a flag. And if you're susceptible to this means that you have a lack of abundance with women and something inside of yourself that is not feeling secure with women. And you're going to eat this up. If you have this deficiency in yourself, you're going to be like, oh my God, this chick's crazy about me. You're going to be super attached to this thing. And you shouldn't be, because this should repel you. Okay. This should make you go, I need to keep this person at arm's length because there's something wrong here. Because think about it. She doesn't know you at all, right? She only knows a little bit. She knows a sliver of what you've presented. Do you know what I'm saying? And so it's just, she doesn't really know you to be able to be in love with you or fantasize about you and all this stuff, but she'll be looking for emotional commitment from you. And I mean that is that she'll be looking for you to return. Oh, I just love you so much and you don't love me yet. You know what I mean? Or maybe, oh, I understand that you may not feel like you love me yet because it's so soon, but I've never felt this way before. And then you're like, yeah, that was really cool thing you did with your mouth. So I definitely feel the same way, right? You're going to feel compelled to return that emotionally. And maybe if you're susceptible, you're going to feel that way emotionally because you're getting roped in and sucked in, right? And that's going to happen early again. And so that's not where 3 months, 2 months into it, 6 weeks, 8 weeks into it, when she's crazy about you like that, when at first she was held back, that's a good sign. That's fine. Maybe you really are seducing her and maybe you're that dude, right? But week 1, 2, 3, 4, nope. All right, not quite yet. Then it'll be logistics. All right. So even if she is able to dupe you during that beginning thing and you during that begin parts of the love bombing and you don't catch it, because remember, these people are also calculated, and the smarter ones will watch a video just like what I'm doing and then learn how to game this and game you. Oh, that's right. Most guys will see it as a red flag if I tell them I love him after week 2. So then she'll map out in her head to wait till week 6 to 8. She can be that manipulative and dupe you there, right? Most of them won't be that smart or that researched because there's always a new mark that'll fall for it if you won't. But some will. Some will go down that rabbit hole because the higher value you are, the more supply she gets in taking you down. Okay, so keep that in mind. You high value dudes, like legit high value dudes out there, you are a target for toxic personalities. So this will be looking logistically. So if she gets past that emotional stuff in the beginning and moving too fast there, she'll have a sense of urgency for a logistical attachment, moving in, or I need some help financially, or I need this. And a lot of it will be revolved around you helping her, because part of her knows and understands that if you help her, if you do something for her, if you oh, I'm in this financial bind and you give her some money, or oh, I need help and comes rescue me, and you go pick her up because she was stranded somewhere. And of course, I'm not talking about legit, dude, my car stopped. I'm calling, I'm calling an Uber and figuring it out. And you're like, hey, well, you know what? I'm around the corner. Let me help you. That's fine, right? Of course. I'm not talking about that, but like, oh, I have nobody else to help me. I called you because I didn't know what to do. And okay, that's somebody who's trying to get you to do stuff for them so you become more emotionally attached. All right. And it'll be on a logistic level, doing things for them or making commitments to them before you're ready or too early, because they want to rope you into the situation where you're now obligated to them as quickly as they can get there. Because just the emotional attachment can easily be broken if you become wise to what's going on in the situation. So she knows if she gets you in, moved in together, or sharing even something as simple as sharing a phone bill, or sharing something, this now becomes a logistical attachment. So when she discards you, she'll have this thing that will keep you needing to contact her for stuff. Like she'll leave stuff at your house that she needs to go get later, which I know girls will do that are healthy too. That's something that they will do just as part of their claiming process, but this is something that they'll do to a degree of calculation, because they know that when things go south, they always have that anchor into your life. They'll want to make a relationship with your kid and maybe start babysitting your kid, right? Or they'll want to do stuff like they want to anchor themselves into your life somehow. They'll do it logistically, and they'll do it in a time frame before it's appropriate. And what I mean by that is, yeah, sure, wanting to take things to the next level, maybe let's say 6 months, 9 months in, might be too early, but they may feel that way. And that's not necessarily an unhealthy person, but wanting to do, some of these logistical commitments a month or 2 months in, or, after a nice summer together, that's a red flag. And you want to look for this inability or, not being able to protect herself. That's a big thing, where she just won't protect herself from, harm, in a sense. She'll be more so invested that there will seem to be a lack of self-preservation there. All right. And the reason why is because she's actually controlling the situation to get you embedded in with her. Right. So she's actually in control there. And so it's something to look at. All right. And then to notice then too, she'll demonstrate an unreasonable lack of patience if you tell her no. So if you're like, I don't want to share. I know it seems like I know I need a new phone and you need a phone, but it's not not going to share a phone bill with you though. That's what we've only been seeing each other 3 months. I really like you, but I'm not going to do that. You're right. And then she gets upset and mad at you. And it's like, then she tries to manipulate it and, so that you would do that. And it brings it up in our, oh, well, yeah, you won't even, I mean, what's the big deal? You won't even do this, or, trying to get you to stay over or come over a lot, like more often than what would be normal early. And then being mad that you won't. You see what I mean? Like when you tell her no, she'll guilt trip you or be mad at you and demonstrate a problem. And then if you reward her and cave in, she'll flood you with sex and love bomb again and all those things. And that's something you'll want to notice, okay, is that she can't take no very well. She's not a healthy chick who'll go, yeah, I get what you mean, and it's cool, and then drop it for a few months. You know what I mean? If you're 5 months in and she's like, we need to get married or we should get engaged, and you're like, yeah, I'm not, I'm not into marriage, or, I'm more or less thinking we've not been seeing each other long enough. And then she gets really upset and pissed and then is always trying to, manipulate that thing, bring it up, all that kind of crap. She's just pushing and pushing and pushing the relationship down the road and trying to move those relationship milestones a lot faster than what you're ready for. That demonstrates a lack of awareness at the very least, but more so a lack of care for you, right? If you're saying I'm not comfortable yet, and then she's like, oh, really? And then continues to push these milestones when you just demonstrated and said you're not comfortable, she's not listening to you. She's not caring about you. She's being selfish and trying to push things into an obligated scenario. So now that she can completely hook into your life, abuse you, discard, and you're still now hooked and roped in, you can't even get out of it easily, right? And so that's something you want to look for. Excessive compliments and things of a so another sign. Excessive compliments and things of a woo-woo or spiritual nature, especially very early. Oh, our signs align. Oh, it's meant to be. Oh, a lot of this woo-woo talk. Now, girls can get very sentimental and they can get into that when they're emotionally open to you and they know you well enough and they've had time for a relationship to develop. So if it's several months in and they're doing that, okay, that's one thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if she is within the first couple weeks and the first, you guys are having some really good sex and she is talking about how it's a spiritual experience for her and talking about her signs and all this stuff. I mean, that's not, of course, a deal breaker, but that's a red flag for sure. All right. Is that she'll idealize again, like in some spiritual grand level, your penis is the problem, the solution to all the problems. And so like you need, and I just noticed Pete here, if you're the one doing this, stop it. Okay. All right. If you're the one doing this, do not do it. Okay. You need to stop doing that. Because it's not, I know why you're doing it, because you want to bang a virgin. And I'm not saying it's only about the sex, but that is part of it though, right? And the attachment, you want this thing with her and that she has a aversion to it. And therefore part of you is like, well, if it's a spiritual connection, then she'll let me be her first, kind of a thing. And I know it's not that calculated for you, because I know you as a person, you're not this manipulative guy. Okay. But that's emotionally and your schemas, that's what you're being pushed to doing. And I would say, stop doing that. You know what I mean? It's okay to have a spiritual belief once again, but let's be calculated. You don't know if you're meant to be with this chick or not. And she doesn't know that either. Especially not before you've had a sexual experience together. I'm sorry. It's just the way it is. That's my opinion though. But you're going to want to give it a lot of time and things to work itself out before you get to that point. You know what I mean? And so if you're doing that, that's a bit of an unhealthy thing. And I'm not saying you're being intentionally manipulative, but that's not, you're idealizing something to a point where it's allowing you to ignore possible red flags, problems, and things. And it's you're trying to create an attachment with yourself and within this other person because of you being lacking in having healthy relationships throughout your life. Really is what it is, man. So you gotta look at that. All right. And then that gets into the one-itis, right? So she'll talk about how you are just irreplaceable and there's no one else like you. Now, understand if she's been seeing you for a while, you've had a lot of really intense experiences, and you've gone past 6 to 8 weeks into a relationship and it keeps going, she may talk in these terms and then she could be a very healthy person. But even let's say she's 4 months into it and you guys are having this great relationship, and sexually, emotionally, she feels the best, better than she ever has been. She may talk about you like, oh, I think you might be the one, or some of these things. That's okay, but she'll still have an element of, we'll see, right? It'll be like, God, seems so perfect for me. I can't wait to see what our future is going to look like, kind of thing, right? She'll have that air of, okay, I understand that there's an unknown future here and more that we need to experience. And that's the air that a healthy woman will have. But an unhealthy woman won't have that. She'll display all of the certainty, how you're the best person that she's ever been with. You're the one. And I know we're meant to be together, and our future together is going to be amazing. And this and that and the other, it's like this excessively positive bias, right? It's an excessive positive bias to the point of being unhealthy. Positive thinking is not always healthy, gentlemen. All right. It's not if it's fitting. If your positive thinking isn't rooted in healthy attachment, or isn't rooted in reality, let's say, and what's actually happening, then positive thinking isn't good. Negative thinking is worse, but positive thinking to the point where it's so idealized that it just doesn't fit what's actually going on, that's not a good thing. And that's what they do with this one-itis and that you're irreplaceable kind of talk, right? And whereas a healthy girl will be more open to a future, and she'll display that with her language. And you got to understand, you're the one for her. She's said that 5 or 10 times over. And that's may be difficult for you. If you're stuck in a BPD relationship right now, this may be difficult for you to hear. But she has said 10, 15, 30 times, depends on her notches, depends on her age. But she has said this like time and time and time again. There's been guys before you that have been the one, and not just a one off or two guy, right? She's been in love and said, I love you several times to several other men. That's something that probably a girl shouldn't be able to count on one hand, okay, in her whole life, how often she said, I love you, okay, and meant it like, I want to be with this person forever. If she can count more than, and if it's to number 5, she better be like single again at 40, all right? If she's had 1 or 2 boyfriends that she's I love you to, and you're number 3, and she's, let's say, 30, 35 years old, okay, that makes sense, right? She's 21 years old. I mean, and I'm not talking when you're kids either. You know what I'm saying? Although there is an emotional element there, they're not emotionally mature, right? But let's start the count from, let's say, 21 onward, okay? Or, 19, 20, 21, when has an adult mature brain onward. If she's 32 years old and she said, I love you 8 or 9 or 10 times, that's a problem, okay? That's somebody who's demonstrating not to even have a good, healthy attachment thing, right? And so you got to keep that in mind. Those of you guys who are stuck, you're not special. And I know you hate to hear that. And they can't, because their validation is so wrapped up in this other person that they hate hearing. They just want to know that they're the alpha. I'm the alpha. I'm alpha. Okay. It doesn't matter. Alpha, beta, she doesn't care. It doesn't matter. All right. You're a supply for her, a disorder. That's what you are. And if that's what you are, there's several other guys that have been that before you. Doesn't matter if you're a better supply or not better supply. It's all subjective anyway. All right. So you got to keep that in mind and get your head out of your ass. All right. If you're stuck in this. Okay. Future faking. That's the thing that they'll do, where they'll casually, and the girls will do this on the first date. Big red flag. Casually talk about marriage or kids, again, pushing towards the future. Like, I'm really marriage minded, like all that stuff. Dude, that's a red flag. All right. Guys who are betas, guys who are, I don't mean it's typecast as a beta if you do this, right? But it is a beta thing. All right. You're going to eat this up. If you have an attachment issue, you're going to eat this up. If a chick is on the first date trying to talk about, having milestones with you, like marriage, children, moving in together, and she is way ahead of herself. right? She should be on a first date just having a good time with you because she doesn't know you. How does she know that you're the, and it doesn't mean she's BPD, by the way. It could just mean that she's, you know, just has a misplaced ideas of how relationships should develop, which you'll have to determine that based on looking at all the data points, right? But that future faking stuff isn't good. Picturing this future and trying to display this picture of a future that you two will have together someday that's so amazing, and doing that really early though, where it's just inappropriate, huge red flag. All right, or it's a red flag, we'll put it like that. Again, always, so here's another one, always making future plans. And this will happen down the line a lot of times as the attachment goes and you end up in the relationship, but you're not so much like living together marriage yet, but you're like in that committed phase. She'll always, and actually will work in through the commitment. She'll be always making future plans, back to that idealization of the future. But the important part is she'll keep you doing the future planning and putting you to work to make that planning happen. So she'll have the vision and idea, and then she'll be sharing and wanting and pushing you to have the same vision, and then having you do things to make that happen or push that vision forward. All right. So, and this could be something as simple as, we really should do this camping trip next month and blah, blah. And then she puts the onus on you to plan it, do it, and make her happy. All right. And I'm not saying that planning is bad. You got to recognize the difference between healthy and unhealthy patterns here. So she could be, let's plan a vacation right in your relationship. And you're like, cool. And you guys talk about it. And you're both putting effort in to making the vacation happen, right? And deciding, you as the decider of the relationship are like, hey, I'll take care of A, B, and C, or she's and her being a willing and good compliment to your life is saying, yeah, like, you know what, let me take care of this, or I'll research that or whatever. Or, hey, we need to redecorate this room. What do you think? Like, I really want to do this. And you're like, yeah, that sounds cool. Like, that's normal stuff, right? So like, I want to get that out of the way, right? Like all right, that's normal. But like, there's an unhealthy way this happens where she makes it your problem to solve for her emotional well-being. That's something you need to look at. And so not just as so much in the love bombing, but in more like the tail end of the love bombing or beginning of the devaluation phase when things are still sort of good. Well, and even later in the relationship when things are not good, she'll keep you busy is the point. And it'll be working on this future to make her happy. So this is how she keeps you invested and also keeps your mind busy so you don't notice the level of devaluing and basically essentially the level of being used that's happening. So you're being used now, just like that beta male resource. Maybe she made you feel like King Dickenstein alpha man, and now you're, beta Steve just trying to make her happy, right? And then she keeps you busy. And now that's not healthy or good, whether she has a personality disorder or not. So that is a flag, okay? If you find yourself in that situation, you need to start evaluating your situation very quickly. Another thing is using a lot of hyperbole. Again, this is, words like soulmate, forever, always, and being very careless about that. Saying I'm going to plan a life with somebody, that's not saying I'm planning a life with my LTR. That's not a careless statement. Like, that's a big deal. And it took years, for her to get to that place and for, us to get to that place, quite frankly. If she was talking about building a life with me after the first, 6 weeks or whatever of being together and referring to me as her soulmate and forever and always, that is indicating an attachment problem. And if you're eating that up, that's indicating that you have an attachment problem too. All right. If you're delivering that stuff to her, that is indicating that you're using a technique to drag her in to your frame. And you think that that's a good idea. Let me tell you, there's better ways to drag a girl into your frame. You don't have to drag her. Actually, dragging is what you're doing. There's ways where she hops and jumps and skips right into your frame because you're not doing that stuff, right? And again, I'm not saying that words of affirmation and love words aren't a good thing, but it's being over hyperbolic with it is something you need to look out for. In somebody who does that, that's a bad sign. And if you're doing it, okay, that's something you need to evaluate. Victim narrative, okay, that's a big one. So they'll tell you, and they'll tell you early, oh, my ex was abusive, or all my ex-boyfriends are terrible, or, they won't take ownership for any of it. Okay. Listen, you guys who have been through this, you've been through an abusive situation with another person, and it's not your fault. But you know what? It is your responsibility. And there are mistakes that you made and things that you need to own about yourself. And you participated in that relationship, and you need to own that participation. And you need to own that so you can fix these things so you don't do it in the future. All right. That is taking responsibility for your own future and your own situation, but not blaming yourself as a victim, because there was a victimization that occurred. When a BPD chick talks like this, she talks about her past things where maybe it was an abusive situation. She won't talk from a point of, I was a participant in this, and I'm had to break free from it myself. Like, she won't talk about it from a point of ownership. The whole narrative will be how she is the victim 100% and did nothing wrong ever. All right. And she'll then also turn it to you being the savior. So this will hit your hero or savior complex, right? That you might have. If you have a savior complex, you're looking to save Captain Save-A-Ho, right? This will work on you like magic. She will be like, oh, my other boyfriends were, they were ever so dull. Everything was so bad, but you're so amazing, And again, you in a way, I mean, not to stimulate a complex you might have. Yeah, like in a way, if you're a high value alpha guy who is the potentiality to having a long lasting, awesome relationship with a ride or die chick till you're old, you're one in a few dudes. All right. So not only are you valuable, but when you get with somebody who's a good match for you, you are her savior in a lot of ways. You are saving her from a life of bad dick and bad attachments and or loser beta males or abusive dudes or whatever the hell she might fall into. You really are saving her from a lot of shit. And in some ways, she's saving you from a lot of BS too, right? And so that is there, but that's there in a healthy sort of dynamic. All right. You're not rescuing her from all of the people that victimized her, and she's just this innocent little flower that you needed to go, preserve and put on some sort of pedestal somewhere. She is a participant in her own demise. And if she doesn't talk with some sense of that, and I know women are really compromised when it comes to admitting any sort of fault in anything, and it's to a level of annoying. Okay, a lot of times for some of you guys, but really, even a healthy girl who's normal, but just has that normal, okay, yes, I don't want to be seen as a bad chimpanzee, so I'm not going to own stuff. All right. But she'll still talk from a standpoint of like, yeah, I made a bad choices there. I should have left earlier. Like, you'll hear some ownership there, and you won't get that from the focus. She may sprinkle some of that in to try to look and live action role play a normal person. All right. So that's something to be careful of too. But really, the victim and her true core belief is that she's a victim and that she had no control over her situation whatsoever and couldn't have made better choices. All right. And so that's a really big red flag to look out for. And she displays that early, even more of a red flag. Think of it like this. A healthy person wants to put her best foot forward, especially if she sees you as a top tier man. So here's another thing, dude. So I'm dropping so many, by the way, put like a fire or something. You better like this video. I'm dropping some like serious knowledge this morning. And I'm telling you guys, this shit is gold. It's going to save your freaking life, man. And I'm answering a lot of questions that people have had here. Here's another one too. How do you know she thinks you're alpha? How do you know she thinks you're, the best person? Well, if she thinks your potential for being that alpha best choice for her, she is putting her best foot forward in that first 6 weeks. And she doesn't want to let you know about her traumas, her bad choice, her bad situations. A healthy girl understands that she in some ways participated in situations where she was the victim. All right. And so she doesn't want you to see her as a victim. And she doesn't want you to see the bad choices that she's made, because she wants to, put her best foot forward, and she wants to have good times with you, and she wants to learn about you. And that's her focus. Right. So a girl who sees you as an alpha dude who's got potential to she just is falling for, it's not even thinking about potential, it's just falling for you. She is not going to be inclined to talk about all the ways she was victimized or all the bad things that happened to her. Now, you guys develop a relationship, sure, those things may come out and she may want to talk about those things, and that's good, that's healthy. But in those first 6 to 8 weeks, hell no. She's going to put her best foot forward. So you need to ask yourself, am I the beta, or is she the personality disorder person trying to victimize me, or both? If she is giving you a victim narrative early, if she is leaning into talking about all of the problems and difficulties she's had in life, that's not putting her best foot forward. That's not impressing you, is it? What that's doing is trying to capitalize on your self-sacrificing nature. So she sees you as a beta male who wants to offer provisions and favors and sacrifice for pussy, or she sees you as maybe a benevolent alpha or somebody with an attachment issue yourself, and that she can sort of use this victim narrative to capitalize it. And even if she doesn't see it, maybe that's her normal mode and she's testing it. And when you don't respond to that, you know what I mean? Like in a way where you're like, oh, that's so sad, let me take care of you, then she'll move on and all that stuff, right? All right. So that's a really important one. And that's another thing too, is she'll be inappropriately disclosing this victim narrative, often when you're not even asking for it. I mean, I guess it's one thing if you really ask for it, if you get in a conversation early and you're asking for it, there may be something that happens. She'll still be reluctant though to be forthcoming in the beginning, and it makes sense that she would be if she was healthy. But like if you're not asking for it, and then she's like, oh my god, this reminds me of my ex and it was so traumatic, like, okay, get ready, all right, because this person's might have a lot of issues. All right. So another thing, magic mirror. Okay. This magic mirror, what that is like, hey, you have this thing. I have this thing. We're very much alike. Isn't that cool? All right. Now that's normal and healthy, like you like golf, dude. I like golf. Let's go golfing. I'm not a golfer, by the way, but you get the idea. Oh, dude, like you're into firearms. What do you got? Oh, I'm this, right? That's normal bonding stuff, right? But the difference between normal bonding on a date with a chick who's really into you, who is looking for common ground and want to go, oh, I love that too, right? The difference is the love bomber is a liar. So they don't have an identity. So they're going to try to act like they share your interests or experiences or beliefs, and like they've always had them. Oh my gosh, we're just meant to be. I love skiing, right? Or I love that. And a lot of be a lot of things you can't verify. Oh, I'm so into firearms too. And you're like, oh, cool. And then you start talking about firearms, you realize she doesn't know anything. I mean, maybe she's just trying to impress you, but that could be, if she's lying, if you catch her in lies where she's trying to say, hey, I'm really into this thing that you're into, and she has no clue, there's a reason she's lying, right? Like she's trying to manipulate the situation. That could mean that she's doing something a dumb and doesn't know what to do, right, on dates or whatever, and just got in a bad moment. But if this is in combination with some of these other things, that's a pretty a flag not to ignore. You know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, I'll just kind of take a peek at the chat here because this is a long ass video. Healthy, submissive women will still have boundaries. Yes, that's correct. And I'm almost done with my list, just by the way. Let's see here. This is a good one. MGTOW Logic, thank you. If the storytelling of a previous relationship is done with a lot of emotion instead of calm and perspective, then she's not over it. Hell yeah. Firecrackers, firecrackers. Thanks, bro. Hit that like button, all that stuff, man. Thank you. And thank you, sir. I'm looking for some things. Here we go. Yeah, Ben, not bad advice there. I would have to tend to agree here. Okay. I haven't looked above to see who you're talking to, but I have to tend to agree with that one. You know, long-term relationships, long distance relationships are generally not a thing. All right. 20-mile radius. Well, that's debatable. The main thing though is, can you see this person at least once a week? Right. If not, if it's a huge logistical problem to see this person frequently, you have to have plans to come together in a different and better way. I'm not saying don't spin that plate and don't have that thing started, but you can't go any further and you can't assume a commitment at that level. All right. Okay. So approach anxiety, I'm not going to touch right now. Because it's a whole topic that's different, but I've talked about it before and I'll talk about it again in future videos. All right. It's something we handle that though in practice in my mastermind group, because that is something that guys struggle with, and we get over that stuff very quickly. And you don't have to just hang out at a shopping mall trying to talk to random girls and look like an idiot to get over it. Right. You can get over it pretty quick. With some mind stuff and then action, depending on how diligent, all right, you are in taking that action. All right, so I looked stuff. How do you deal with beta orbiters? Nothing. So if you guys got these random questions, yeah, throw it in super. But I mean, really, I'm gonna try to stay on topic. Beta orbiters. It's gonna. What was the other one? And approach anxiety. I'll give some general answers to these at the end. So approach anxiety, beta orbiters. Yeah. And, again, throw a super in there. It supports the channel, helps support me for the advice, right? I mean, it's good. All right. So let's, all right. Cause I don't even know if all right, so now back to some of the things to close this, and then we'll answer some of these random questions. And so, integration, like integrating herself and hooking herself in with your family and friends. Okay, that in doing that really early. So, especially if you have a kid. Okay, it's and I'll answer this question right, because this is yes, self-harm is a dead giveaway. I wouldn't say dead. Self-harm is one of the 9 traits. Okay, so you checked off one block for sure. Okay, and yes, I have a video on beta orbiters. You guys can go back into the video to look into that. All right, but yeah, self-harm is one of the traits that you can look at. If she's doing that, she's not a healthy person. If she has a history of doing that, there may be reasons for that, and it's debatable whether she's healthy or not. But I'd say that is a flag for personality, for BPD specifically. All right. So, but yeah, she wants to make herself and hook herself into your life. All right. So she wants to be she's going to be extra around your family. And you may find that she's so uncalibrated and extra that your family and friends are kind of uncomfortable about it. It's kind of like, geez, like, I don't know, man. She seems kind of weird, like you'll see that they'll be distrusting, and you won't see it because you're hypnotized by the vagina, but they'll see it and see these things as a problem. Right. So watch out for that. If your friends are like, dude, she seems like really weird. Like she's acting like we're best friends and we've not known each other for more than like 5 seconds. Again, there's a healthy, calibrated way that people will meet others in your life and in your family and have these relationships with these people. There's a healthy way and an unhealthy way. You know what I'm saying? And if she is excessive about it and she's trying to make herself like, kind of hooked into your social circles and doing that early, she'll use your social circles against you. Right. And this is where she'll run a smear campaign and some of these other things. So if that's something she's doing, do you know what I mean? Be aware of that. Okay. That if she's trying to, be into your friends, like in a way, and I'm not saying like she meets your friends and, she likes, people in your friends group. Eventually she will become a part of your friend group, and that's okay, of course, okay and good. But when she's looking to do that really early, wanting to meet your kids or your family, especially, is a big one. A lot of these girls will want to meet your children early, or they'll want to meet your family early. That's one tactic. It's not a dead giveaway, but it's definitely something. Now, there's a lot of kids. Another thing, keep in mind, there's a lot of times that women don't do these things and are still borderline personality disorder. So remember, it's a combination of things. Like she might not care about meeting your kid or your family, but she may do other things on this list, right? So keep that in mind. Okay. So attention. Requiring a extreme amount of attention early on, that is definitely a red flag. Acting like she can't behave or act, she can't handle being away from you. All right. Those are things. And just being, kind of obsessive over you, texting you all the time, doing the stuff within that first 6 weeks, especially where it's like too much, right? Where it's a lot. And then she will get upset or mad if you don't return that level of attention, so like you're busy at work and she texts you a bunch of repeat texts, and then she gets mad at you later. Like she's like, I've been texting you all day. What the hell? And like, you've really been on 3 dates with this girl, like this kind of obsessive behavior. It's a bad sign. All right. And so she'll seem to require this attention and guilt you for not giving her this attention. Like she's a victim. And doing that within the first 6 to 8 weeks, that's not a good sign. All right. And so keep an eye out for that. Back to other ways and other flags that I've already mentioned, but this is related to that, is doing things to try to make you reliant on them. So they'll want to do things for you, but in such a way where you're now relying on them for what they're doing. And they'll want to do that early on. Obviously, if she's in your frame and you're in a healthy relationship, she should want to do things for you. And she may do things for you that you would now rely on her for those things. But it's not like she wants you to be, like, if you're in a relationship for a year, let's say, with a girl and it's healthy, it's not like she wants you to be reliant, but she just wants to be, she wants to be a compliment to your life, and she wants to be, useful to you. And so then she'll do these things for you. And you may be relying on her for certain things, right? Once you're in a relationship, and that's okay. But a BPD girl will start this stuff early. A healthy girl is not going to want to make you feel like you're reliant on her about stuff, 6 weeks, 5 weeks into a relationship, right? That's not a healthy dynamic. Another thing is, you'll notice that she's obsessed with your exes and sees your exes as threats. Now, there is a degree of discussion about exes and a discussion and learning about a person's sexual history and past. Okay, some of that stuff can be done in a healthy way. Some of that stuff is not done in a healthy way. But what we're talking about is being obsessed. Like, let's say you have an ex-baby mama, and instead of trying to get along with her, she sees her as a threat to the relationship. And of course, this is assuming you're not doing things to make it a threat to the relationship, right? So you have a normal thing, and you don't even like your ex, right? But you have to deal with her because you're children. And then she is like all about seeing her as a threat and being threatened by her, like right from the get-go. And she's making no attempt at being supportive, and sees any person that's ever been in your life as somebody that is directly combative with her, like directly at ends with her. And she makes it toxic, like even to the point of stalking your exes and some of these things that some of the crazy women have done. Again, and this is not assuming that you're doing things to make her feel this way about an ex. In other words, you're not actually keeping inappropriate relationships with exes, assuming. All right. So that's something that you need to be aware of, because that's somebody with an unhealthy attachment. It's going to try to, is going to feel more threatened by an ex-boyfriend or girlfriend. So let's say you run and you go somewhere and the ex-girlfriend is there, and you're like, oh, hey, how's it going? Hey, here's my, this is my new chick, Amy, or whatever her name is. Let's say her name's Amy in this example. And then she's like, oh, hey, nice to meet you. And then Amy's like mad all night because your ex was there and all this stuff. That's bull stuff, right? Okay. A woman who's healthy is not going to see that as a threat and oh, hey, nice to meet you, or whatever. Oh, that was your ex. Oh, okay. Like, she'll be very normal about that. Okay. So it's not normal for someone to be obsessively, seeing this person as an enemy. you know. And then furthermore, she'll bring up her exes a lot. So BPD women have trouble letting go of past relationships. And that's another thing. And so do victims, by the way, of these situations. So that's a thing you need to do, is you need to let go of these past relationships. But you're not doing it because you're a personality disorder. You're doing it because you are affected by it in a negative way and you have unresolved reasons, even if you don't want to be with her again. And so you need to work on making sure you're not, holding on to experiences, even if they were abusive ones and they're seen as threats, right? But for her, though, she'll deliberately bring up exes in order to compare them with you. Now, we know that go watch my cooking videos, okay? Psychologically, women cuck men all the time. I know that's a controversial statement, but it's a factual one. All right. And they want to be, doing all of her past and any of the present possibilities. They're all getting psychologically seen as less. So she sees you as more. Okay. That's normal and healthy. All right. In comparison to past experiences, she will do that. All right. Or she will, whether she does it consciously aware or unconsciously. But a BPD or narcissist will do it overtly and will tell you about that stuff in order to do what's called triangulation, which is bringing in another person or a third person to compare you to them and try to make you qualify to her by making yourself better than that other person. Like, well, Steve in accounting is so nice to me and he really is a good listener. And then you're like, oh, I'm going to be a good listener. Let me be a good listener. Okay, get it? It's getting you to compete with a third party and making you feel intentionally insecure. That is a, major flagger issue. All right. And so that's it. And we do have my friend in the chat here who is pretending to be me sometimes. I think you're Men's Shrine now, maybe. I don't know who you are. Be somebody else though. Okay. Don't be me. All right. This is an important topic, bro. Seriously. I got some of the people like they like to, it's not me necessarily always posting in the chat, but like that. All right. So not to get too derailed. So so the past relationships, again, seeing those as threats. So last few ones, sex bombing. Okay, this one's a good one. Is they make you feel like your D is the best D that of all the Ds that have ever walked the earth. This is a great feeling. Healthy women will do this too. Okay, when you really lay it down and she really is having the best sex, she's going to do this. Some women will want to not say that to you and kind of like, want to hold that back a little bit. And some women will freely tell you, and that doesn't mean they're healthy or unhealthy. Okay. But where the unhealthy part or the red flag happens is where she then uses the sex to manipulate. All right. And so it's either the promise of future amazing, awesome sex, or I'm mad at you now, so I'm going to withdraw the sex. Right. Creating conflicts where there are no conflicts just so she can withdraw or remove sex. That is a unhealthy behavior. Here's another thing that unhealthy women do, whether it's an unhealthy behavior, we'll put it this way, I won't say all unhealthy women, but as they will take in order to manipulate you through sex to get you to do behaviors that they want, they will notice when you're horny or sexually, wanting something, you know what I mean? And then what they'll do is they will create a conflict where there really shouldn't be one. And they may even find the most manipulative way of doing this is they'll find something that is a mistake that you've made or is something small. So something you could be criticized for, but like it's this big. And then what they do, you know what I mean, is all right, Jaron, it's not a troll. Thanks, Jaron. Hi, Jaron. Hope you're doing good, bro. I had a troll for me though. The guy was all like being me. Like I didn't, All right, and I got this one. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Like only because, like, dude, like I like having you on. This is not me that typed that. I liked having you on. Some of the stuff is kind of funny, bro. Like really, but it's a distraction, right? Like I'm not just mouthing off about, I don't know, female nature or some bullshit. Like this is stuff, dude, we're talking about life-saving shit here. Like no shit. We really are. And some guys are really struggling. So it's a distraction from it, man. Like it really is. I like having you on though. You're probably, I don't know who you are like personally, but you're not this bad human being or anything. Like I don't have like, I'm not mad at you or anything, but the trolling thing, yeah, I would appreciate it. You know what I mean? If you didn't do it on my channel, at least not that much, right? Or at least don't be me anyway. That would be helpful. Thanks, man. Ben, you're awesome, dude. I appreciate it. All right. This is a good comment here. Yep, they never forget, make mountains. So yeah, and that's something that will happen during devaluing usually, right? So during the love bombing, that won't always come out, all right? But the devaluing phase, that is definitely what will happen, all right? And so yeah, back to the thing is the sex bombing. So once again, using sex as a tool for manipulation. And so here's an interesting thing describing every woman I've ever had a relationship with. So where does one go to find these so-called healthy women? All right. Now I'm not going to try to be, I'm not being a dick or anything here, but understand that a lot of these things though occur in transactional relationships with women who are healthy. What that means is they're not seeing you as the apex alpha. All right, so that's why. And so they're not seeing you as the apex alpha. For example, the one I just met, and I'm not saying that I don't know your personal relationships or situations, so there's nuances here. We're just giving you a trend, all right? The sex bombing or using sex as a tool for manipulation is common, all right? Because women learn, but when women are having transactional sex, that's what it is, right? Sex is part of a transaction, so it's natural for her to do that. Whereas, you know, in a BPD relationship, all sex is transactional to them, even if they're really intensely enjoying it. It's always a tool for manipulation, always. Okay. And so, and you'll never know the difference between them putting on an actor show or them being genuinely, you know, being all over it. A lot of times they're all over it because their emotions are just like, you know, they're able to just release all this emotion sexually, which can be very hot and attractive. But an attractive woman, a healthy woman though, that sees you as that dude, that apex alpha, she's going to have trouble. If she tries to use sex as a manipulation, she's going to have a hard time with that because she wants sex from you as much, if not more, than you want sex from her. All right. So that's the difference. And that's what I mean. So a lot of these traits, again, taking singularly, can just be simply red flags. A lot of these things happen because she's in a transactional mode or mindset. All right. Either because it's early and that's her only model she has, or just simply because she doesn't see you as that alpha guy. Right. So example, talking about long-term commitment and seeing if you're commitment minded and all this stuff and asking you those questions on a date. Well, she does that to guys who are beta provisioners too. Right. And she may be a healthy woman, but she's just is in a dynamic or place in her life where she's looking for the long-term beta provider. And that's her dynamic. It doesn't make her unhealthy. It just makes her unaware, right, of a lot of things and her desires and those things. Whereas when with that alpha guy, what is, you know, she's not having this marriage minded conversation. She's simply trying to, you know, have a great time with them and feeling all these emotions with him and ends up getting laid by him. Okay. And so that's why you want to keep that in mind. All right. As this, so no, every woman is not toxic in all this stuff. Right. So yeah. And, well, thanks. I appreciate it, bro. Like, he still has my avatar there. He says the troll. That's funny. Anyway, what we got here? Oh, okay. Well, yeah. I'm sorry. Anyway, all right. So back to the here's like the last one I'll mention, and you know, it's got quite an extensive list, and this is quite a long video here, but you know, I'll chop it up into some smaller, more digestible pieces, you know, for guys who need it. But struggling with empathetic statements. So if you're wondering if yeah, no, I know, dude. I know. I just thought it was funny, bro. It's all good, man. It's all good. I'm not mad. It's straight. But anyway, yeah. So like a BPD person is going to struggle with making statements of empathy. All right. And you'll notice this where, okay, it could be something as simple as, let's say a waitress is a little bit rude. And you're just like, you know, she's not rude, like, so let's say not rude, but just let's say unattentive. And she seems frazzled. She seems like she's not having a good day. And you're like, she seems like she's having a bad day or whatever, or she's just probably, I don't know, it's really busy here. Or, these are things that what people would normally say. Like if you're like, or if you're like, damn, dude, like it's taking us forever to get a drink. And she's like, yeah, it's busy though. Like she seems really stressed out. Like that's an empathetic statement, So if she's saying empathetic statements like, for example, well, the waitress, she's really stressed out. It looks like she's got way too many tables or whatever. That's a good thing. That's demonstrating that she can have empathy for another person to a degree. And yes, women are, shorthanded when it comes to empathy. Okay. Compared to men, whereas they're very good at sympathy, whereas men are shorthanded when it comes to sympathy. And that's a whole nother discussion. All right. So that can be true. But when it comes to girlfriends and other people in situations like that, you'll be able to see like a girl who has NPD, especially narcissistic personality disorder, but BPD too, especially if they're if they're higher on that spectrum, especially it's like they're broken when it comes to having empathy. They won't be able to look at that waitress who's frazzled and stressed and be able to say, oh, yeah, she's just stressed out. Like we're not going to be so hard on her, kind of a thing. Right. It's like anything, and especially if anything that violates, her wants and needs in the moment, if she's not getting it from a person, she has like no ability to have true empathy and understanding for that other person and understanding what somebody else is going through. And so that is something to pay attention to and something you can even use to test. If she is talking about a bad experience and you're like, well, yeah, it sounds like this other person maybe was going through a lot, or this other person maybe was thinking like this. And then she has no ability to like understand it and empathize with that. I mean, that's a red flag. That's a problem. So somebody who can't make empathetic statements and can't have that's something to really notice. And that's one that guys overlook really, because it can be overlooked very easily. And so I'll answer this question. This is a good one. Toxic relationships have the best sex. I will tell you no. Okay, no. And here's why. Most of the time, most guys are actually not leading in the bedroom. What I mean by that is like they're trying to get the sex. She's the gatekeeper to the sex. She gives the sex, and then he is the guy that's doing the sex. Usually the guy's doing more of the work, unless she's on top, right? The guy's doing the work, right? The foreplay and all this stuff. But it's to her like, what can I do? Like, can I do this next? Can I do that next? Not that you're asking for permission, but it's like you're qualifying essentially to the woman and she's gatekeeping that sex, which and so that actually puts her in the leadership position when it comes to sex, that dynamic. And that's where most of it is. And I'm not saying that you would lead a woman into hard stops or, boundaries like that and cross boundaries with her. It's not what I mean. But there's a difference between a woman who is being the gatekeeper to the sex and going, giving you her reactions so that you then react and try to make her, do better and feel better and all that stuff, versus you leading her and her submitting and releasing herself to you. Do you know what I mean? And so when she's designed to do that, and when you get very good at creating a sexual experience for a woman, she submits and just falls into your frame at that time and gets led and dominated and controlled the way that you want. And then you push her to places that she's never been before sexually. Now, when she has that experience, her genuine desire for you and sexual desire, she will go feral for you. And then she will like lose her mind in the bedroom too. And she'll crave it and want it from you and all of this stuff. And she'll do things to just demonstrate, like she'll be crazy about you sexually, basically. And it'll be more so than the toxic person. The toxic person does it because she enjoys doing it and getting the reaction out of you. So she acts like you're the best D in the world and acts, oh, I just want you. I want your dick so much. Blah. And there's a lot, sex feels good. So of course that's an element of truth to it for her, but she is doing it because it's the fact that she's getting that reaction out of you. That's her motivator. Whereas a healthy chick likes the reaction she gets out of you, but her motivator is because she is overwhelmed with her emotions and feeling like incredible. And so when you get a girl to that incredible feeling, most women have never even been there. Okay. That's statistically a true thing. When you can get her to that point, the sex is better with a healthy chick. Because think about it. The BPD girl is the crazy in bed girl for plug and play any dick. All right. It's transactional. She's that same girl who acts like she's obsessed with your dick, has done that several times over. The only difference is she's learned from the previous guy how to do it a little bit better. And so she is that's the only difference. She is just the same, oh, I love it. Okay, person, right? With you that she was several times over in her life. Whereas the healthy chick is like acting like crazy person in the bedroom in ways that she's never done before. And she's like embarrassed at herself sometimes. And she's like, what the hell's going on? And like crazy. So it's way more rewarding because genuine desire is what drives us. What's hot for us as a woman who's crazy about us. It feeds our ego and it feeds us sexually, right? That there's evolved reasons for that. And so why we desire that so much. And so when a chick is that way and it was a healthy chick, and you know that chick wasn't that way with every other dude, but is that way with you because her healthy framework is, puts up barriers to releasing and letting go like that. And then you lead her into releasing and letting go. Like, okay, forget it. The intimacy and the level of, sexual intensity is so much higher than it ever is with the BPD or MPD girl. The difference with the BPD, MPD girl or the crazy girl, though, is if you're not seducing a healthy girl to that level, then the BPD crazy girls will feel like the better sex. And so a lot of guys are in that framework and they're like, man, the BPD chick will never have crazy sex like that again. Where she was uninhibited and just would do whatever and was crazy desiring you. Okay. When you're really good at seduction and you can flip that framework where instead of her being the decider, you become the decider and she follows you and it feels out of control in the bedroom and goes crazy for you. Let me tell you, healthy woman with a healthy mindset and mentality, a healthy mental framework who is crazy about you in the bedroom, way, way better. Like that exceeds any sexual experience probably that you'll ever have, in my opinion. So that's how you overcome. Do you know what I mean? Is you getting better at seduction. I mean it. It's not just a grip of my stuff, but really getting better at seduction, both in and out of the bedroom. Because what makes for the intense experience in the bedroom is often most of that, by the way, is what happens outside of the bedroom. I mean, you still have to do the things in the bedroom. Can't remove that from the equation. But what happens outside of the bedroom, right, is in the buildup to that. That's what creates this massively intense experience for her. And when you go there and you have that, you won't go back to BPD. You won't go back to NPD. You won't go back to crazy. I mean, not for very long. Maybe if you're in a dry spell and you're single, whatever, but you're not getting emotionally attached and you're not like even letting that chick know where you live, maybe. Right. And so that is all of the information. I'll go through some of the super chats real quick here. And so we'll get some of my buddy Jaren's comments. Sex with crazy chicks is novel at first, but they wear off quickly. Eventually, it's intimacy, depth, and interconnectedness you want with your girl. That is one of the most mature comments I've seen all day. Not that you're, I mean that as a compliment. That's good, man. So yeah. So anyway, all right. So now going back to the virgin thing. All right. So betting down the virgin. If it's because she's not kissing and not being intimate because she gets attached too easily, she's literally telling you that she has an attachment problem. Okay. She has you and guess what? You're rewarding the attachment problem. You're rewarding this for you, Pete. All right. You're rewarding the attachment problem because, you're trying to get her more, not less. Right? As she withholds from you, you're trying harder. Do you see how that's a reward? You know, you're love, and you've already said in the comments, you're love bombing her essentially in a way because you really want to get this girl who claims to be a virgin. Say claims because she's 22 years old and you don't really know that. I have no reason to say she's not, and I'm not saying she isn't, but just keep in mind, for as far as you know, she's a virgin. If she doesn't have a cultural or religious reason, or something, if she's not really a family-oriented person who still lives with her parents, if she's 22 years old, it's very family-oriented, indoctrinated in sort of a culture where she is a part of that family still and not just on her own, like in the West, and still lives there and all that, and believes in marriage and has these values and has in particularly a religious connotation behind it. Muslim girl would be a great example. Muslim girls can be like that. There are Christian girls like that too in the West, though. Most Christian girls will have sex with you, but there's a lot of Muslim girls that really adhere to that, those principles. That's one thing that indicates that she has a set of values and principles and her lifestyle where her survival is is dependent on the social structure that she's a part of. And then her values being dependent on that has caused her to really have a strong belief in withholding sex before a long-term partner like marriage, right? And usually marriage is the milestone there for those girls. And so that doesn't demonstrate an unhealthy attachment or somebody who's got something going on upstairs that's not good, but that does demonstrate just a deep-seated belief system, and that's something to be aware of. And instead, you're probably not going to uproot her from that, nor should you want to, because even if you do, right, she's now going to feel very guilty and feel like a bad chimpanzee, and there's going to be a lot of guilt surrounding the sex. Any kind of sex she has with you prior to what she believes is the milestone she needs to meet for the sex to happen, which could be the wedding, all right, and being married or whatever, or whatever it is she believes in, right? But chances are it's the wedding. If she has sex with you prior to that, she's going to hate herself, and then she's going to resent you because you brought her to that. You see what I mean? So if that's in her value system, you're going to have to adhere to that value system, or you're going to have to, move on from it or find a way to deal with it, right? Whatever. I say deal with it. Maybe you're just not in a relationship with her and you have, you're moved on essentially until she decides something else. I don't know. You'll have to figure out how you have to hack that. Okay. And so, that's that. But chances are more than that, because she's in the West, is that chances are and she hasn't kissed you. Because I know you're going to be having wishful thinking here. And I'm not trying to just be like, whatever, devil's advocate, because I see you in the chat here. Oh, she's, I think this, and that may be right. Solution is the other girls. Probably, dude. You know what I'm saying? Right. And it's not like she's requiring something of you that I think is philosophically misplaced. She is requiring a commitment and for you to give away yourself and your commitment before she invests in you, which puts you in her frame. So it's not exactly what you want. Now, if you both have this ideology of Christian commitment and withholding sex and stuff, and you're leading it, that's one thing. She's leading this, though, not you. So whose frame is where, right? You're not going to enter her frame and have a successful relationship, or the one that you would want. Her desire will move south from you anyway. Now, chances are, too, though, she has a lot of hangups around sex or surrounding it, because she's telling you she gets attached too easy. So what does that tell you, though? She's not kissing you, and it's been like the 7th date, but she gets attached because she gets attached too easily. Well, how does she know that? It's because she's probably had sex before, my friend, and she's not telling you the truth about being a virgin, or at the very least, she's been very physical. We'll say she uses the mental gymnastics to say, so she says 1 year milestone. So you mean at 22, she's never been with somebody for a year? I mean, maybe that's possible, but here's the thing, dude. I would be very skeptical to believe that she's not had sex with a guy before. And you see this in a lot of different things where they've had, oral, they've had anal, they've had a lot of, but anal is like a weird, like that's like a South American thing where they'll do that. It's a Catholic thing. Like they'll do that and not give up, the other parts of them. That's a way for a girl to have her mental gymnastics that she's still a virgin, or she'll, what is it? But yeah, she'll like the oral thing and all this other stuff. Yeah. So Nigerian. Okay. All right. And so, yeah. So, I mean, she may just, so culturally she's different. That's working in your favor of maybe not attachment problem. So that's good. You know what I mean? And so that may be, that's a good indicator, right? If she's not a Western chick. That being said though, man, okay. She's saying she gets attached too easily and withholding kissing, and then you're continuing to pine for her. You're rewarding that. This is being used. Her model is to use sex transactionally because she's using your desire transactionally. And I don't mean like in a bad, like she's doing it in a sinister, like a intentionally, horrible human being or something, right? I'm not saying that, but that's the model though. She doesn't see sex as something that she needs to desire for herself or the emotional connection that she needs to have that desire. If she's withholding, because to me, she's withholding a lot from you. And I promise you this, whether she's had sex or not, and how you define sex, she has been physical with other dudes and didn't make them wait as long as she's making you wait. All right. And so that should tell you something. She is seeing you as not the alpha guy right now, bro. I mean, that's what it is, because she's telling you, I get attached too easily, therefore I won't kiss you. That means that she's done that before with other dudes. She's done more physical stuff, whether it's full on sex or half the sex or whatever you want to define it, with somebody else, and did it quickly, was very attached. And then what happened? Maybe she got hurt or discarded or whatever, right? And so that could be the case, but understand that that's the case. And understand that her desire for you is not enough for her to push past this barrier. And the only way you know that is if you say, this isn't for me. And we can hang out sometimes, but I'm going to see other people and I'm not going to be in this commitment with you because guess what? This is not healthy for me, right? If you're putting that on the table and moving away from it and she goes, you know what? I need to overcome this, whatever. Yeah, I don't know. But even then that still creates a transactional dynamic. Like I don't even recommend staying in this. I don't know enough information. We're just on the internet right now. We're not in session. So take my opinion with a grain of salt that it is. Okay. But I don't see like that's necessarily a good idea to stay in this from what I know right now, because her whole model is not even healthy when it comes to sex. Again, being a virgin's great if that's the truth. But I mean, but being not intimate is a problem. If you're on the 7th date and she's not intimate with you, and I mean emotionally and physically intimate without the sex and without the release, then that's a problem. Okay. A healthy woman with religious values will still kiss you and still hold you and cuddle you and she'll want that intimacy with you. And she'll put up barriers so that it doesn't turn into sex. Like, well, I got to leave my clothes on or leave my door open, or, these are some of the things that like a conservative, like Christian type would do, or Muslim. Right. And that makes sense, and she'll put some barriers up, but to put intimacy barriers up and then have you try harder, that's creating a unhealthy dynamic where now intimacy is being leveraged, right, for your efforts and time. That's not good, whether she's really an unhealthy person and whether you're alpha or not alpha or any of that stuff for her, as far as she sees it. I mean, that's remains to be seen. But one thing that's for certain is that her mindset when it comes to sex isn't good, bro. And you really need to consider that. And I'm glad that I was able to answer that for you. You're a good friend and a long-standing client, my friend. I was happy to be able to do that. I'll answer one more because I saw my buddy Hook in here. He's in my group and he's doing very well. All right. How to vet a girl who wants to be exclusive in dating and sex after 30 days of dating. Well, is that her artificial rule? What do you say, vet a girl? So in other words, I'm not sure what you mean by vet a girl. I think you mean that, like, how do you not, fall into a commitment after 30 days? Or like she's saying, here's my rule. Like, I want to be in a commitment after 30 days. And well, and you're like, well, how do I overcome that, that situation or objection? Well, and the thing is, it's just simply you give your commitment away on your terms, not hers. And that's what you tell her. You just say, listen, 30 days is kind of an artificial timeline. I think that we just need the healthier thing to do is that we just see each other and have fun and develop organically and see how things go. Right? That's the healthier way of looking at this. All right. And so that's how you need to tell her. That's what you need to say in response to the 30-day thing. If she's trying to put like she's trying to push for commitment too early, which a lot of women who are a bit older will often do that because they want to push that seduction process along. So if she's, she wants to push that commitment along because she doesn't have any time left. But here's the thing, man. The fact that she's out of time and she's past the wall, all right, to put it bluntly, isn't your fault. All right. The fact that she made a series of bad decisions to put her into being single in her late 30s, early 40s, or even 50s, and now she feels like she's out of time, is not your problem, any of you guys. So if she's trying to rush things, it's simply like, listen, I understand we're not getting any younger, but we got to let things develop organically or naturally, or it won't be healthy. And personally, I don't want to keep doing unhealthy relationships and continuing to be single for making bad choices. So let's just enjoy each other and make sure we're making a good choice and take our time. That should be the framework. That should be the dynamic, right? And that's how you lead it in that direction. If she is not going to handle that and is going to continue to push it, well, then that's a demonstration of somebody that doesn't have a good dynamic when it comes to relationships and possibly is an unhealthy person herself. Right. And so that hopefully answers that. Me and Jack Napier are going to enjoy each other. Though someone clips that now and do that. What's up, Jack? Good to see you. All right, I'm getting some calls and some weird stuff. I don't even know what's on my calendar right now. I hope I didn't ghost a client on accident. I spent 2 hours on this thing. You guys are great. I appreciate you. Hit that like button. Subscribe to my email list too. There's a lot of free content and stuff that goes out on that. That's pretty valuable, and it's not spam or any of that bull stuff. And when I do new things and products, I'll offer, just like the Alpha Mindset course, I offered half off to my email group only when I offered that. And I'm going to have some things coming out in the future, and I'll be doing similar things. So it's no harm, no foul to get on the email list, to stay in touch that way. And then, of course, you got those other links if you need additional help. All right, see about doing some intense work with me during the mastermind program, right? You want to take a look at that, and I had the ad for that. So thanks again, guys. I appreciate it. Subscribe and take care.